Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. It's Trevor here with you today, and I'm joined by my guest, Thomas Samuelson. Now, Thomas has over 30 years experience in finance and capital markets. Thomas, before we find out more about you, just what's the key takeaway you're going to be sharing with our listeners?
Yeah, the key takeaway, I'm going to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship, and the really two things that are very important is commitment and the ability to be all in. And when I say all in, I mean no plan B. I mean, I think for any entrepreneur to be successful, if you're not 100% committed and if you're not 100% all in, there's no way you can be successful. I mean, I think most successful entrepreneurs will tell you the same thing.
Yeah, some sound advice. I'm keen to hear more, so that's really good. So for those that haven't yet met Thomas or know much about him, he's a recognized expert in developing market economies and also a guest lecturer at the NYU Stern Business School, amongst other things. And he's here with us today to share some of his experience and financial know-how. So welcome, Thomas. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
So maybe kick us off with, 30 years is a long time to boil down into your brief history, but just we'll touch on BRON in a moment. You can explain a bit more about that, but just in a nutshell, what's your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I have a long journey. So my journey started after school. I literally started right after college into Wall Street. I got into the Merrill Lynch training program, now Bank of America Merrill Lynch, but Merrill Lynch training program. And that started a long journey working for a number of larger investment banks, always involved in trading and sales and management, working outside of the US, so international and developing countries. So worked for a number of large investment banks, like I mentioned, Merrill Lynch, Smith Barney, Bear Stearns during the prime years, and a few European institutions. And then around the early 2000s, I made a transition, which is a very difficult transition and part of this whole entrepreneurial journey, where I decided to leave Wall Street and just start a new career and basically try to get on what we call the buy side, become an asset manager. I always had that in mind, and I made that it's in some cases a very difficult transition for most, from working for an investment bank as a trader, et cetera, to going on the buy side to become an asset manager and an institution, and eventually an institutional investor, where I worked for one of the oldest investment funds in New York, oldest hedge funds in New York. And what my job was is to go out to go around the world and find interesting investments. So whether that be China or Brazil or Russia or in parts of Africa, we would travel there, visit with companies, understand the cultures of the countries, which I think is very, very important, especially in the times we are today, and invest in the top companies, what we think could be the best growth companies. And all during that time, as working for these investment firms, et cetera, I was always in an entrepreneurial mindset, because most of my compensation during those years was based on performance. Because in Wall Street, it's always based on performance. I was always a frontline person, never behind the scenes. And you sort of eat what you kill. So it forces you to become an entrepreneur. And then, I won't go, we can talk about this later, but certainly about 5 years ago, I saw an interesting problem in the system that I wanted to solve, relating to something that I did all the time, traveling and dealing with companies. And that's how I formed my own company, became a full-time entrepreneur. Actually started part-time, but then became full-time. And then now, as the CEO and co-founder of BRON Investment Network.
Okay, yeah, no, it's an interesting journey. I know, there's a lot more into it, but just for time, we won't dig too far. But just, you were on a good salary, weren't you? Very lucrative career, and yet you still made that transition, which takes courage. For some people, it's easy to stay with the comfort of security of knowing what you're going to make, even if it's based on your performance. But if you're performing well, you're making a lot of money, why would you change it? But you listen to what's inside you, I think, and that sort of moved you on your journey, shall we say. So no, that's really good. So for people listening that may be relating to that, thinking, I'm doing well, I want to be entrepreneurial, sort of dipped my toe in it a few times, maybe either got burnt and decided not to, or just I'm in a really good job, it sounds like a nice thing to do and I think that's what I want, but do I really want to leave the job that I'm in? Any of those sort of emotions and things like that people might be feeling, because it's a mindset issue rather than an emotional issue, isn't it? What would be some of the sort of the practical things people should kind of ask themselves, I guess, or just examine themselves with regards to, is this the right step for me at this point? Or what, do I need to put something in place in order to get me towards that position?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting question. There's a lot to absolve there, but I think one of the things that I had going for me this last time was I had done this before. So when I had made that first transition from working for investment banks to an asset management industry, I did dabble as an entrepreneur in a couple different situations, and I failed. Right, so I think most entrepreneurs. That's the one thing I want to tell the audience: you're going to fail. Okay, your first time. There's very few first-time entrepreneurs who make it. A lot of people fail, and I failed a lot during this time. And I think that the mindset that you have to have is the same mindset a good salesman has, in the sense that you can't let anything bother you. You just got to keep going. You got to keep moving. You can't take anything personal, because certainly when any entrepreneur starts to go out and raise capital, you have to have this mindset, because certainly if you speak to 100 VCs, 90% of them are going to say no, maybe more than 90%. All you need is one. And you can't, as I talked before, you have to have commitment, and you have to just keep going, and you can't stop. So the mindset has to be that, you have to go in, and whether you fail or not doesn't matter. You say, I'm going to do this. I believe in this. I believe in the journey. I believe in this company. I believe in this idea, and I'm going to go all in. And I'm going to have the enthusiasm that it's going to take to propel things forward, and nothing's going to stop me. Now, you may fail, you may not. And most of the people are going to fail, but you have to pick yourself up and just keep going and go on to the next one. And was my mindset, because I had failed in the past. And I said, okay, from mentally, I said, I can keep going. I can find another idea. I have this great idea based on my career or the problem that I decided to solve. And I just said, I'm going to go it again. And fortunately, so far, things are working out, but you never know.
Yeah. And the thing about failure, in some ways, it's a two-edged sword, isn't it? Because it proves, if we try something and if we fail, it proves that we're trying something outside of the comfort zone that we've been in, where we are. Also, it's a stretching thing as well. The drawback is as you say, we have the chance of giving up and tried that, didn't work, stay where I am. But what were some of the things that you told yourself during those times of having just failed? It's never fun. We always try and avoid it. But as you say, it's a natural part of life, and really a natural part of growth, isn't it? When we're a baby, when we first try and walk, we fall down. If we never got up again, we'd all be sat on the ground, wouldn't we? And that's just not productive. So in some ways we know it instinctively, but it's still easy to fight ourselves and not get back up. How have you coped, or sort of overcome, I suppose, really, some of the failures and things, to keep that mindset of, I'm just going to keep going, I'm going to persevere?
I could tell you that I took what happened in the past, but it's, and a number of years ago, but it happens almost as an entrepreneur. This kind of thinking happens almost every day. I mean, every other day I wake up sometimes and I say, what am I doing? I mean, oh my God, I used to make, relatively a lot of money. I probably should be thinking about retirement, and right now I'm all in on this company, and it's something that I think entrepreneurs have to understand, that you're going to go through you may have gone through in the past, which most have done. So I've overcome this, but it never ends. Okay, so that's the other thing. This and it's really doubting yourself, right? So you wake up every other day. I wake up and I'm like, oh, how am I gonna keep going? And it's true. I think every entrepreneur will tell you the same thing. It's an ongoing process. So whatever experience you had in the past can help you overcome what you're experiencing today, but it's a constant thing. It's constant issues, constant problems, constant doubting yourself, because when you're starting something from zero, literally from zero, the process is brutal, and this kind of thing where you're doubting yourself, it never ends. Even people that become very successful continue to have these anxiety, but you have to every day you have to get up. You have to stand up and just say, boom, I'm going to go back to my desk, or I'm going to go to my office, whatever the case is, and you're going to keep pounding. And that's the only way to get through it, grinding right through it.
Yeah. So do you draw on certain habits or something that helps you get perspective back during those, the moments when you're actually feeling, no, this isn't going to work, or I'm going to fail, or whatever? Any particular strategies, tactics that we could learn from and maybe adopt if it works for us as well? Certainly things we can try and see how that works, but anything specific that you've found and that works for you to help keep that focus? Because in some ways it's like, it's got to be driven by passion, hasn't it? You've got to be passionate about what you want to do as an entrepreneur, to serve people, to build a business, whatever. But at the times when the passion is less evident, shall we say, or we feel less passionate about it, back to the emotions, what are some of the things that you've sort of done to keep yourself going, shall we say, and stay focused?
One of the things that's really helped me, I think everyone has their own way of coping with things. One of the things that really helped me, because you get, as I said, you do get into this mindset sometimes, and it's usually when you're laying down or waking up and you have this dream, like, oh, you're thinking about, when you're thinking too much. And some of the best ways to get over that is just, what I do is I just take a long walk, a hike, and I'll put on a podcast, or put on something totally irrelevant to my business, and even sometimes, a podcast of listening to other entrepreneurs not in the industry you're in, and just getting your mind off of the business completely for a while will regenerate you. Because if you're constantly thinking about your business and constantly thinking about the problems in your business, or personnel in your business, or obstacles that are in front of you that you have to overcome, it is overwhelming. And you can't, sometimes you have to take a step back. And for me, the best way is just take a long hike and just go on some music or something where it's completely, and all of a sudden your mind is free. And then when you go back to that problem that you're trying to solve, because you're always trying to solve some type of problem, you're going to have a fresh perspective on it, because you've taken the sort of, you've gotten rid of some of the anxiety, but just getting away from it. And so a lot of people unfortunately make the mistake of just sitting at their desk and just staring at the screen, Googling and searching and just stressing about things, when what they should be doing is getting up, getting out, getting away for an hour, 2 hours, sometimes 3 or 4 hours. So entrepreneurs work a lot of hours, so getting away for 3 or 4 hours, not a big. If you work 9 to 5, it's a big deal. But if you have your own company, stepping away for 3 hours is not a big deal. And then when you come back, you're almost setting yourself up to have a fresh perspective on things, to attack these obstacles and problems.
Yeah, that's really good. It's such a key point with regards to sort of managing energy, in some ways, in any aspect of life, isn't it? For people that maybe aren't in the position where they're running their own companies now, and they're in the 9 to 5 or something like that. Just, it's a good strategy to manage your energy, because in some ways, like you say, we can overthink or overwork certain things at certain times. We get fatigued, and then we're not going to produce anything of use when we're fatigued, if we've gone that far. But like you say, a couple of hours out, fresh perspective, go back to it, and suddenly it can look different, can't it? The same thing you were looking at before, you see it from a different perspective. So that's really good. I also like trying to develop curiosity as well, to get it from a different, like, look at something from a different perspective as well, and just try and get someone else's opinion or something, like other input, than just focusing on that. So Yeah, it's really good. I like what you're saying, because it's like you have to be 100% committed. You have to keep going. But the balance of that doesn't mean you just constantly work all the time until you see what you would describe as success, whatever that looks like for the individual. It's that balance of embracing the flexibility, I suppose, isn't it? That's the whole point of why a lot of people become entrepreneurs, because they want that different lifestyle. They want to be more in control, and having that flexibility on yourself that, yeah, this isn't working, I need time out, I'll come back, and having that belief that when I come back, things will be more productive, more. This is really good advice. Any other sort of practical bits that maybe we've not touched on yet? I did want to ask you briefly about the BRON network, what that entails. But before we do that, any other bits that maybe you haven't shared, I haven't asked you about, that you think would be really useful at this point?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I've touched on a little bit, but I think a lot of if you read a lot of entrepreneurial books, especially for young entrepreneurs, they'll tell you that you can map out this new company, find a problem to solve with this, have a plan B. And I didn't mention this, but I think to be successful, you cannot have a plan B. And it sounds crazy, especially for someone like myself, and who started at a late age. I think I haven't really mentioned that to your audience, but I am not a typical entrepreneur. I am much older than your typical entrepreneur. I started very late in life, but and I took a lot of risk, like as most people do. I think this the same risk as a 25-year-old, a 55-year-old takes it. You're taking big risks, but you can't look at it as you have a plan B, right? So you can't have this mindset, well, if I fail, I can do this, or you won't succeed. You have to take that plan B and throw it out the window and say, I am all in. I am 100%, I am 150% committed, and there's no turning back for me. Yeah. And it's tough. I would say that's why most people don't make that leap into entrepreneurism, and most people fail, because they can't, for some people, they can't take that risk. And I understand that. Fortunately for me, my career has been in risk taking, right? So whether you invest in companies, if you're taking big risks, so I'm able to manage risk better than most people. But whether you're someone like me or anybody out there, you can't have a plan B. You analyze the risk in your business, not the risk in your personal, the risk in your business, and you have to make sacrifices. Your personal life's going to be be hurting. If you're married, it's going to put a pressure on your married life. If you have kids, young kids, going to put pressure on that. But and unfortunately, I have to say, you have to look beyond it, because you cannot be successful as an entrepreneur and be worried about your wife and you're worried about your kids. It sounds brutal. It really sounds brutal, but this is the honest truth. And you can't have a plan B. And if you fail and you went all in, and you lose your house, you lose your house. That's why it's so brutal. And that's why the numbers are so against entrepreneurs, people that make this jump, because the downside is massive for you, right? But you can't think about that. You have to just keep moving forward. So I started brutally honest, but that's really what it is.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's important, isn't it? Because you have to make informed decisions when you do it. And like you say, I like what you said. I want to clarify and bring out a point that you said as well. You manage the risk to some extent. It's not just uncalculated, sort of spontaneity that it felt good, so I did this and this. No, there's a process in place, isn't there? But with that, at some point you have to take that step, don't you? There's a step into the unknown, which is different for different people, but you're never going to know it all enough where you feel confident without a certain level of a step of faith, or a step into maybe a step into a stronger self-belief than you realize you've got. I think that can be such a key aspect as well. All good stuff. This is really good stuff. Just for time, so share a little bit about BRON. What is BRON?
Sure. BRON, by the way, is the word for bridge in Swedish. because I'm Swedish.
Okay.
And what we say is we're the bridge between investors and companies. And why I mean that is that historically, and I'm talking listed companies right now, historically, there's always been a middleman between an investor either trading, understanding, and that is the banks, the investment banks. So whether it's Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch, Barclays, whatever it is around the world, these banks have been the gatekeepers of these investment opportunities, right? So you have to go to a bank, but things have changed dramatically. The world has gotten information has gotten fragmented. So what we created in BRON is a platform, and our main clients are the companies, right? So we get paid by the companies, and we'll create a platform for them to give them tools to have direct access to investors. And that could be a large investor or the smallest investor. And we're seeing now an amazing, massive movement and explosion in individual investors. So whether it's in the UK or the US or Brazil or Russia or China or India, it doesn't matter what country, the individual investor, the younger investors, believe it or not, since the pandemic, it has exploded in terms of the interest in stock markets. And I don't think that interest will abate if we have, as we are now having, which are down markets finally after 10 years. But I think it's a mindset of the younger generation that want to have control over their finances. They don't want some middle market person. So we give the companies the empowerment to be able to have a tool to be able to talk directly, whether it's directly to a bunch of individuals, young millennials, or to larger institutions. And that's really what BRON is. It's a social network, a communications platform for companies and investors to come again without in an unbiased way, without any kind of middleman, which is the traditional investment bank.
Yeah. So particularly geared for Generation Z, really, amongst others. But yeah, no, that's really good. Interesting. So for people that want to find out more about that, whether they're actually thinking of investing now or just sort of want to find out more details about it, best place for them to find that, head to your website?
Yeah, they can go to our website. We have a free app, so we don't charge investors for anything. They can download our free app in the App Store or Google Play. It's BRON Investor Network or just BRON, but they can go to our website. So it's broninvestornetwork.com. No www, just broninvestornetwork.com. And they can go to our website and see what we're doing. They can sign on their desktop, but most people are on the mobile apps, and we're on we're in the Apple Store and Google Play.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah. So
sorry, one more thing. We do have a lot of social media channels. So we are on Instagram, BRON Investor Network. We are on all of the channels, including TikTok. And we produce content for investors, and again, trying to give them interesting content and always, again, bring them back to the company aspect and understanding what the companies are doing. Sorry about that.
Brilliant. No, it's good. It's all good stuff. There'll be a link to the website for people who sort of want to go straight through to the website through the show notes on here. But yeah, so those that want to go straight to the app and download it's BRON, isn't it? BRON Investor Network.
BRON Investor Network. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, that's really good. We've kind of run out of time for now, but it's been really great chatting to you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and insights and encouragement as well. Hopefully people are inspired by the fact that it is tough, but it's worth it if you stick with it, isn't it? If you're smart about it, you make the right plans in place, you take the right calculated risks as well. Manage your energy well. Lots of good things you shared, so thanks for all of that. There's lots that we could take and run with and implement. It's been really good. Maybe at some point you'll be able to come back and talk to us about managing risk with investments or something like that. There's lots, I'm sure, different ways that you could help us going forwards, but thank you for the time that you've given to us today. It's been great meeting you.
My pleasure, and thank you, and to you and to the whole YBS team. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome, Thomas. So for everybody listening, definitely take action on something that Thomas has shared, whether that is managing, first of all, your energy, how you approach things, how you approach getting into entrepreneurialism, if you're not already in there. It's a big word, that. Or just however you want to change your mindset, your focus from maybe giving up from past failure to changing that to actually, I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to give up. You know what that is. Whatever's touched and resonated with something inside of you, definitely take action on that. We always encourage you to take action. Otherwise, it's just another podcast episode and it's not going to help you that much. You need more than information. You need action on that information. So always encourage you to take action. Remember that we believe in you. We believe in your potential. Thanks for joining us, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yeukai.businessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.